What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Daily Walk with Lance. This is where I take my morning Bible devotional, I record, upload it, and share it with you guys. Like I say before every video, don't view me as a spiritual leader, pastor, prophet. I'm just the average Joe trying to show other average Joes that even with a busy 9 to 5, you can incorporate more Bible time than Sunday morning or Sunday morning and Wednesday night. That you should be in it every day. That I always beg people, start with 10 minutes, start with 20 minutes, start somewhere and build on it, because it's not as hard as you think it is. Every new habit, every new thing that we try to learn to do, it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of getting used to, and it always seems bigger and more of a problem than it really ends up turning out to be. So I'm just trying to encourage that in other average Joes, other guys that are, just doing what they can to hold on and still try to be a decent person. But today we're going to talk about one of the apostles, Thomas, which is his original name, kind of like how Jesus is Yeshua, or Thomas was Didymus, is how you say it, I believe. And this is after Jesus rose after the 3 days, and Jesus had appeared to some of the apostles, but Thomas wasn't with them. And then when they came to Thomas, he said, "Well, I won't believe unless I put, if I see him myself, if I touch him myself." And that's where we're gonna pick things up here. So we're gonna be in John chapter 20. As always, I'm in the New American Standard Bible. We're gonna start with verse 24 and probably go through the end of the chapter 31. And it reads, "But Thomas, one of the 12, who was called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples were saying to him, 'We have seen the Lord.' But he said to them, 'Unless I see in his hands the imprint of the nails, and put my finger into the place of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe.'" 8 days later, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came, the doors having been shut, and stood in their midst, and said, "Peace be to you." Then he said to Thomas, "Place your finger here, and see my hands, and take your hand and put it into my side, and do not continue in disbelief, but be a believer." Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Because you have seen me, have you now believed? Blessed are those who did not see and yet believed." So then, many other signs Jesus also performed in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And again, that's John 20, 24 through 31, which is the end of the chapter. And like I said, there's the overall message here is that God appreciates the ones that don't need all the signs and wonders, that the people who see the evidence and the history and knowing the Bible itself, knowing that Jesus was who he said he was, just from pure knowledge of the Torah at the time, and continuing on into today, where somebody might not have that moment like the burning bush moment, or that moment like a vivid dream or a prophecy or something, but the person who just believes and has that childlike faith and the history and the proven things, the person that can believe from that is blessed more than the person who needs something more. And it doesn't say that one gets salvation and one doesn't. No, he says, he gave Thomas the sign and said, "Continue, do not continue in disbelief, but be a believer." So he's not saying, "Thomas, you're out." No, he's just saying, hey, the person who had that faith, that loyalty, that didn't need signs and wonders on top of it. They knew the prophecies. They knew the Torah. They knew who the Messiah was going to be like. They knew what was going to come through, and like how the Messiah was going to come about. And then They believed on that because that's what Jesus was, and still is. I mean, don't get that twisted. But Thomas needed more. He wanted physical evidence, and Jesus granted it to him. But he also said to Thomas, hey, because you have seen me, now you believed, but blessed are those who did not see and yet believed. So he's saying, like I said, it's not a salvation thing, but it's a I guess the right word would be like, more blessed. The person who has that blind faith is going to see more than the person that needs that evidence, just because they truly believe things can happen. And that's why, a lot of people are like, I pray for this, but I don't know if God will do it. Well, that's not the attitude you should have. You should be able to know what you're praying for is in God's will, and if it's in God's will, then you should say, I'm praying for this, period. And I'm not saying, you should. It's not that you're demanding it of God. It's that you know that if God decides to act, it'll happen. And like I said, you got to know when he says no sometimes. But it's that I know if it's in his will, it will be done. And then leave it alone. Like, really. And if you want to keep praying about it, that's cool too. Because, there's plenty of instances. Like Daniel prayed for, it was either 20 or 40 days while the Prince of Persia was trying to block a message that Gabriel was bringing to him. So until you get that definitive answer, keep praying for it. But when you get that answer, be willing to say, okay, God said yes, God said no, God did this, or God decided not to do this. And then go on from there. But it's about having that faith out of the gate that if this is what is in God's will, it's just going to happen. Period. All right, y'all. Is this the first time one of my videos? If you would, please drop me a follow, hit that like button, share the video, leave a comment. I say that not to be a grifter, but because the only way the algorithm pushes videos anymore is through interaction. A lot of people have done trial and error to see the way the algorithm works, and right now, interaction is everything. And do this for anybody that you enjoy their content, not just me. All small content creators, we need prayer and then help with the algorithm. So, like I said, do this for everybody that you enjoy their content, please. All right, y'all. No videos this weekend. We're back on the softball field, taking Christ out onto the field. So please be in prayer for us and for all the other teams too. We all have life outside the game, and keep everybody safe, stuff like that. All right, y'all. I will catch y'all probably Monday. Peace.